Hello, hello. It's Joanna with Blissful Baby Sleep Coaching. And I'm so glad you're here because we are going to talk about gassy babies. Right now, I'm working with a client who has the most adorable, almost 6 month old, and this baby is gassy. And it has been a challenge in our sleep training. Um, Now, we have found success for the last 3 nights. She slept through the night, 2 weeks into the process, which is amazing. But gas and gassiness has been a big obstacle during our sleep coaching process. And so I wanted to take today to kind of talk about what causes gas, what we can do for our babies, what are some remedies that are possible to assist our children, because there's no doubt that gassiness causes fussiness. And when babies are fussy, it becomes very difficult for us as the caregivers to determine how to offer them comfort and relief. And sometimes the fussiness makes it difficult to understand what it is that they need. Um, Oftentimes, what we think is gas is actually overtiredness, right? So, when our child looks uncomfortable, we kind of always go through the mental checklist. Are they hungry? Are they tired? Do they need a new diaper? Um, do their teeth hurt? Do they have a fever? Are they gassy? Right? So we always kind of go through this checklist in our minds to attend to the child's needs accordingly. So gas can be tricky because sometimes it can look like gas, and you go about assisting them for what you would do to help them with gas, but in fact, it's actually them being overtired. Now, most families that have children that are really experiencing gas that can disrupt sleep, it can disrupt eating patterns, it can obviously ruin naps. The time that you see it really bad is in the newborn phase, which is 0 to 6 months, with it getting pretty darn bad between 4 and 6 months of age. And like I mentioned, that this particular client I'm working with, like their child is just on the verge of turning 6 months, or maybe she even turned 6 months last week. And so she's kind of right in that zone where gassiness is a big problem. So let's talk about what is gassiness? Why do we have this problem? And the big thing is that it's really caused from an immature digestive system. So again, you're in this newborn phase, 0 to 6 months. There's just rapid cognitive growth and development. And part of that physical development is the maturation of the digestive system. And in that time frame, babies can by accident swallow air when they're crying. They can swallow air when they're feeding. And the immature digestive system literally can't handle it. And it forms gas bubbles. And then, of course, what happens is the gas bubbles stretches the intestine, causing a bellyache, and the child needs to be able to relieve the gas. So that's kind of like how it happens. So again, the first couple things that cause gas is immature digestive system. The second thing that can cause gas is hypersensitivity to a breastfeeding mother's diet from the milk, or it can be a hypersensitivity to the ingredients of the formula that can also cause gas. When a child is feeding, a baby can, whether they're nursing or bottle feeding, they can swallow air, and that causes gas. And also when they're crying, they can also swallow air, and that causes gas. Also, gas is just a normal byproduct of digestion. So sometimes you could be doing everything right. You could have a perfect breast milk diet. You could have a perfect latch, or you could have the perfect formula with the perfect nipple. You could be feeding your child on time. Everything could be just right. But honestly, sometimes gas is just the natural byproduct of digestion, even when you are doing everything right, which can make it even more frustrating. Which was kind of the case of this family. They are like so careful with all of these trigger points, and yet still sometimes she just experiences extreme gas and is so uncomfortable most likely due to her immaturity of her digestive system. And then again, the last thing is that sometimes what appears to be gas is actually overtiredness. So that's something I want you all to be thinking about, just in case there are situations where you're like, wow, there's no reason why a child should be gassy, or I've done all these things to help alleviate the gas and the child's still really upset. Well, it could be that your child's overtired. Okay. Now, I want to tell you a couple other things you might notice when you can identify, yes, this is definitely like my child not being overtired, but in fact being truly gassy. Is you'll typically see them uncomfortable more than an hour. You'll also see them get red in the face and be extremely squirmy and just discontented in the way that you hold them or the way that they want to be held. They just can't seem to get comfortable. And they will sometimes feed less, like in general, like their feedings will be not as much milk, or, you know, mediocre feeds is another indication. Okay, so we've identified what causes it. We've identified what it might look like when they have it. But now let's talk about what you can start doing in the moment when this is happening. And I hope you guys don't mind that I'm referring to notes, because I want to make sure that I give you all this data. So the first thing you can do when you're suspecting it's gas is, obviously, one good practice is always to be feeding your child more in an upright position so that they swallow less air. So if your child is prone to gas, then maybe a good kind of protocol for feedings is to have your child be more upright so that they have less chance to swallow air, because that's one of the triggers. The other thing to do is also be double checking your latch, or if you're bottle feeding, the nipple and the feeding angle. Sometimes, depending on the feeding angle, there can get air inside the bottle. If you have done too many shakes of the bottle, that can produce air, which then, you know, comes through the nipple. So that can be tricky. So a good thing to do would be to make sure that the nipple is the way you need it and that the feeding position is the way you need it with a bottle, and then determine how many shakes you can actually do before it produces too much air in the bottle that would then cause your baby some challenges. And then make sure that every caregiver that's offering a bottle knows that same protocol, right? Because there's nothing worse than when you're doing everything to help your baby, and then next thing you know, you give another caregiver the opportunity to feed, and they're the ones shaking the bottle and feeding the baby flat, and all of a sudden now your baby's got gas again, right? So make sure all the caregivers kind of know these protocols. You can always have them watch this video. That's always a good idea. Also, if you know your baby is getting gassy, like, make sure that you're burping effectively when you're feeding. So if you are bottle feeding, sometimes waiting, feeding for 2 to 3 ounces and then stopping and giving a chance for some burps, maybe even some bouncing, maybe even some leg kicks, that can help the gas keep moving and giving a break when you're feeding. And then the same thing would be true when you're nursing, that about every 10 minutes you could stop and make sure you've gotten some good burps, or maybe even help the child pass gas while you're feeding. And here's a big one. Sometimes babies, when they're really, really hungry, they will gulp more, or they'll start to cry and fuss before the bottle comes to them. And just in those few minutes that you're trying to prep the bottle or offer the bottle or the latch for the first time, that's when you have a situation where they're swallowing enough air to cause a problem. My recommendation would be there, when you're looking at your feed and your sleep schedule, to just try to be really mindful to offer the feed before they get too agitated, because it's in that agitation that they start swallowing air. Okay. And that can easily cause to gassiness after feeding. And then, of course, when they are experiencing gas, doing bicycle leg circles is always a great idea. offering adequate tummy time during the day so that they are able to pass gas during the day. And then baby massage can also be really helpful. So those are some things to be mindful of in terms of how to avoid gas, or when you're there and you can feel the gas coming, some physical things that you can do to assist your baby. Now, what can you do if all these things aren't working? If you're being super careful and all the caregivers are doing things the right way, what else can you do? So obviously you're going to want to talk to your pediatrician and have a conversation about, when do you see the gassiness? What times of day you're seeing it? How long does it last? How does the baby act and respond? When you try some of these other remedies, what works or what doesn't work? By giving them some more details, they're able to better kind of create some remedies for you. But some of the common remedies that pediatricians will recommend are a probiotic or Mylicon drops, which can be really helpful for some babies, but some babies it doesn't work. So it's not it's not like a plus. Not for every baby will it work. Same thing true with gripe water. The windy gas pass works really well. So, if you don't have one, get one. If you have a friend about to have a baby, that's a great thing to put in their little baby basket. And then when all things fail, going back and reevaluating either the formula you're on or the mother's breastfeeding diet. Oftentimes lactose and casein in the diet can cause more sensitivity, which then in turn causes gas. But before you make that big leap of, oh my gosh, I have to go off, if you're a breastfeeding mom, I have to go on an elimination diet, before you do anything that intense, I would hope that you would kind of go through this little checklist here to offer yourself some support and help all your caregivers support you in this before you have to make any big dietary changes. So I'm hoping this offered you some assistance with how to manage when your baby has gas. Please know that as they get older and their digestive system does mature, that the problem with gas will start to diminish. And, does it contribute to problems during sleep coaching? Yes, it can, which is why we try to really manage. If we know going into a sleep coaching process with a family, we try to go ahead and manage the gas as best as we can through all these suggestions that I mentioned today, so that we can see if we can minimize the amount of gas, or we can minimize the number of bouts we have. So example, for this family that I've been working with, we went 5 or 6 days in a row with like no problems with gas. And it was like, yay, maybe we conquered this. This is great. We got a protocol. It's working. Our baby's starting to sleep and using their sleep skills. We even had a couple of really good nights where she slept through, and then boom, we got hit with a really bad gas day. And it was bad during the day and it was bad at night. And it felt like all the work we had done with helping this baby achieve blissful sleep kind of almost got like abolished in one night. But then the next day she was fine, and she went back and had a beautiful naps and a beautiful night. And it was like, oh my gosh. And we had a couple of good days, and then we got bammed with another bad gas night. So if your baby is prone to gas, please know you can still sleep train. We just need to do some adjustments, but then it doesn't mean that the gas is gone. We have to continue to be really mindful on supporting the baby, and that you will have possibly some nights where things are going awesome, and then you'll have, boom, the gas bout just ruins that night in particular, but it doesn't mean it's ruined your whole process, or that it hasn't ruined your baby learning the sleep skills. That we just attend to them as needed. And then when we see that the child is in relief, then we continue going. So you can always be successful even when you hit that roadblock. All right. Well, if anyone here has any questions, feel free, if you're watching this on replay, just do the hashtag replay and ask your questions. I'll be more than happy to come back and answer those. Next week is December 23rd, and I am going to take the next 2 weeks and not do Facebook Lives. So if you don't see me, that's why. I will resume again starting on, I guess it's Wednesday, January 6th I think will be the next time that I will be here with you. Any of you that have questions that you would like to ask in advance, you can always go here and ask them, and I will be sure to put in the chat here in a second how to submit questions in advance if you have questions, because I'm always happy to do live hot seat coaching here on Facebook when you submit your questions in advance. So I hope all of you have a healthy, safe, and calm holiday and new year. And let's all hope that we can move into 2021 and see some normalcy coming our way. All right. Thank you so much. Take care.